Hi, this is Alan Parker, and I'm the director of Midnight Express, and this is going to be my commentary for this new DVD of the film. I was first involved with this project. What happened was I was invited to New York to look at a play called The Wiz, which was The Wizard of Oz, Black Wizard of Oz, and Universal wanted me to do that, and I didn't like that. And then coming down Fifth Avenue, I saw Peter Guber, who said he had a manuscript of a rather interesting book, and the manuscript was Midnight Express. As I look at these images, I think it's fair to say that these establishing shots, rather beautifully shot, were shot by Hugh Hudson, not by me. Hugh was a friend who we shared offices, and he was brave enough to risk his life by going to Istanbul to do those shots for me. The rest of the film was made in Malta. This particular scene that you see here, which is the beginnings of everything really, which is Billy Hayes taping the hash to his body. These scenes were all shot in Malta. We chose Malta because I looked at conventional prisons all over Europe. I went to many different countries. They didn't really have the kind of cinematic feel, something a little different that I wanted the film to have. The actual prison, Segmashahlar, which I visited, well, not actually inside, but outside. Segmashahlar on the outskirts of Istanbul was at the time kind of comparatively modern prison. And so I looked at many prisons and ended up with this old Victorian fort in which was in Malta. The airport here is all in Valletta, doubling for Istanbul airport. We didn't go to Istanbul to make the film, obviously. It was too dangerous. The person you just saw there in the frame, by the way, was me, the director, 30 years ago. It wasn't a Hitchcock idea, because at the time I didn't know that I was actually in the shot. But sometimes one gets a bit impetuous to fix a scene, and you find yourself in the shot by mistake, particularly if you're shooting on long lenses as you are here. Ari Miracle and now Brad, of course, dear Brad Davis, who gave his all to this film. I had looked at other actors before Brad. We had the studio were pretty good, actually. They weren't giving us much pressure at the time. The film was made under Peter Guber's deal at Columbia, so and it wasn't going to cost very much money, this film. It cost less than $3 million. And so we weren't given a lot of pressure with regards to movie stars, although the studio did suggest a hot young actor at the time who was called Richard Gere. Richard and I met a couple of times, and he didn't commit, and I didn't commit to him. He wouldn't read the script because he thought he was at a stage in his career where he didn't want to do that kind of stuff. And so I read with every young actor at the time, including this young man, Brad Davis, who came in one day. He came in covered in grease, and 2 hours late for his interview. He was he had an old beat-up Volkswagen, and driving from his home in North Hollywood to the office, he'd broken down on Sunset somewhere, and so he just kept running and arrived red-faced, covered in grease. And I was really pleased that he did come in for the interview, because we did a screen test with him, did a screen test with a number of people, including a very young Dennis Quaid, whose brother Randy was in the film. I'd already been cast at that time. This scene here is obviously a shot, as the bulk of the film was all shot, apart from the establishing shots that Hugh Hudson did for me in Malta, in Istanbul, I should say. This was all done as the rest of the film was done in Malta. And so the strange thing is the mixture of languages which I use, which I feel I should owe some explanation for, as it's been commented on in the last 30-odd years. In a funny kind of way, although this film was obviously politically controversial, it seemed to be anti-Turkish. In truth, it was never meant to be that way. It could have been made in about many countries who have disparate drug sentences and also have harsh prison conditions, and so it could have been many countries. So in a way, I think that what we were trying to do was to create an alien, strange, foreign world, and therefore the use of foreign language, vaguely connected in some regard to Turkish. It's a mixture sometimes of Maltese and Turkish and Waiter, Turkish Cypriot and Armenian and lots of different kinds of languages, which were a whole mixture really. To give a sense of alienation, Peter Guber was very keen not to subtitle anything, and so the audience would feel as alienated as Billy Hayes was in that prison. Irene Miracle, by the way, she came in very late for the casting. I'd seen almost everybody of her age group in Los Angeles and New York, where I did the bulk of the casting. And she had been working in Italy, I think, at the time. She came back, and she's one of the last people to be seen before we cast her. Again, all these scenes were filmed in Malta. The use of the heartbeat is often commented on, which is part and parcel of the soundtrack, or the part of the music as much as anything else. I had been fortunate enough to come to work with Giorgio Moroder on the score of the film. Originally, when I cut the whole thing together, I'd laid as an experiment the Vangelis music all over. I was quite happy with it, quite frankly. But Casablanca, which was a record company Neil Bogart had started, and they were also the film company. And so they obviously were keen on having the soundtrack album. So they suggested this chap called Giorgio Moroder, who I really didn't know at the time. His big success at the time was that he wrote and produced the Donna Summer hits, Donna Summer being the big success story of Casablanca. And so I experimented with Giorgio at his studio in Munich. And it was pretty well just Giorgio and an assistant, and I would go and put in my 2 10-cents worth. And we ended up with an entire score. It was the first electronic score to win the Academy Award. Part of the tension of doing this kind of scene, obviously, is the use of the very subtle music and obviously the strength of the heartbeat, which becomes very much part of it. It's something that's been copied many times in movies, but it's probably one of the first times that it had ever been used as a sound effect. What happens is that when you use the heartbeat like this, and you slowly speed up the heartbeat as he gets kind of more and more concerned, more and more anxious, and the same thing happens with the audience that's watching, because you'll find that as you hear that heartbeat, your own heartbeat starts to beat a little faster, so you become a little more anxious. Therefore, the whole anxiety of the film is heightened at that moment in time.
Get down. Esrar, herif Esrar kaçıkçı.
So this is probably the first time we hear the theme that Giorgio wrote that became the Midnight Express theme. It's pretty simple, really, but obviously its sheer repetition helps. What you see here is handheld. I used handheld camera quite a lot in the film. This was in days before the advent of devices like Steadicam, which allow you to very easily hand-hold the camera to give kind of energy within the frame, which is so very much part of contemporary cinema. This is 30 years old, this film, but it still looks pretty modern in how it's shot, I think. A great deal of that is probably due to the use of the handheld camera. We had made ourselves our own version of the Steadicam. The camera operator was John Stanier, who worked with the cinematographer Michael Saracen, and we invented our own thing, which we called the Stanier Glide, which was kind of made of wood, rather crude affair, in order to be able to handhold the camera. And I used this all the way through the film, basically because Stanier was so good at handheld. By handheld, that's not the old Cinema Verity wobbly scope, but handheld, but with enough movement and certainly with enough with enough control to follow the action within a scene to give it this kind of added energy, so that I would shoot always conventionally with conceived choreographed shots, and we always knew that we had the ability, as in a situation like this where we're using handheld, and the handheld takes you from one point of interest to another. And I think that that, which is quite normal with Steadicam type movies these days, was actually quite unusual for the time, in that it gave the film great energy. I also had a great editor in Jerry Hambling. In fact, all of the crew that I worked with on the film, I had worked with before on my first film, which was Bugsy Malone, and also hundreds of commercials that we'd all shot together, particularly the principal in that Alan Marshall was my producer, and the most important person to me, really, in that we were partners in our commercials company and we worked very closely together, so he was a great help to me. David Putnam also had worked with me for some time, and particularly on the previous film. And then I had the cinematographer Michael Saracen. We pretty well started together. The production designer Jeffrey Kirkland, and of course the editor Jerry Hambling. All of these people had worked with me before, and in fact went on to make quite a few films with me. But because we were pretty comfortable with one another, when you've got a crew that have worked together, makes things a lot easier. Also, the film was, it was a low-budget film. It was the kind of film, I suppose, these days that would be called an indie film, really, except, ironically, this was, in those days, was a film made by a major company in Columbia Pictures. Because it was a low budget, obviously it had to be shot pretty fast. It was made in 53 days, which is pretty fast. We worked 6-day weeks, and sometimes we didn't get a break. We worked at one point 21 days without a break, which is pretty tough on the crew. But it's the only way we could get the film done for the budget. But because we'd all worked together before, we were a pretty fast, cohesive unit, so we shot pretty fast. And we were very comfortable with one another. Just looking at this scene here, I mean, with regards to casting again, I cast, obviously the American parts were principally cast in Los Angeles and New York, but I also cast in London. That's all those Turkish Cypriot waiters that there are in London, and actors and Armenians, and I also went to Greece to cast this actor, and I also went to Rome. A number of the actors were cast in Rome. And of course, I was in Malta, so some of the character actors came from Malta. So it was a real mishmash, really, of actors, and therefore you had this kind of mélange of different accents. And I think that probably, if we'd have had a little more money, we might have gone back and actually dubbed them into Turkish. But in a way, the Turkish thing was not so important. It was just about being in a foreign place. This shot across the Galata Bridge was shot, the exterior part was shot by Hugh in Istanbul. All these interiors were shot in Valletta, and so we kind of mixed them together quite successfully, actually. And there is a sense that we are actually in Istanbul, but of course, all of this was done in Malta, intercut with some shots like that point of view, which actually was done with a second car in Istanbul. But it kind of all added to this the authenticity of the real place, even though we were a long way from Istanbul making the movie. Again, these points of view shots were done in Istanbul, and then we cut back to the interior car scene, conventionally shot. Bo Hopkins, character Tex, rather mysterious American character in a film. I'd seen him in American Graffiti. He had a small part in that. I always remembered him from that. He came in Los Angeles. He was cast. Now, a lot of these moments, this is, again, I think the cleverness of Jerry Hambling's editing, in that so much of these scenes were done in Malta, recreated to be Turkey, and then every so often we sprinkle in the real images of the real place. And again, I hope that makes it that much more authentic. So you cut from a shot like this, which is that shot by me in Valletta, but the two shots before, where the old gentleman eating that rather strange thing, was from Istanbul. All of this was recreated. The Pudding Shop, which is a famous hangout for young people in Istanbul. All of this was recreated in Valletta, in Malta. This was a scene we kind of added later in the script process, in that it was kind of, I suppose, was what the studio wanted, was something a little exciting here. So we made this into as interesting a chase as we possibly could. The whole thing was kind of choreographed in different areas of Valletta, the whole of the marketplace where you see him run through in the moment, which looks pretty good for Istanbul. All of this, of course, is shot in Malta. And the other secondary theme of Georgios comes in, and I suppose this is the kind of hallmark of what was unusual about the film, using what was then contemporary kind of rhythmic, electronic, repetitive music to add to the excitement of things. All of this was done in Valletta. The script I should talk about earlier, just happened to mention it there, is that when I agreed to do the film, I went to Los Angeles and met with Peter Guber, and he introduced me to a young screenwriter who he much liked, called Oliver Stone. And Oliver had no screen credits, although he had written a couple of screenplays and that hadn't got made. Well, one was Born on the 4th of July, a particularly good screenplay. And Oliver and I met. We went to a little deli, I remember, on Wilshire Boulevard. I can't say that we really got on terribly well. I never did really get on that well. We seemed to be kind of opposite personalities. And I agreed that Oliver would come to London to write the screenplay, which indeed he did, and in our offices in Soho, in the back room there. Oliver tapped away and wrote the screenplay. I can't say that any of us, Alan Marshall, David Putnam and myself, got on particularly well socially with Oliver, and I don't know that I made at that point much of a contribution with regards to what the screenplay would be, but the idea was that we would put up with this strange individual, and then he would go away and I would write the screenplay. When he delivered the first draft, it was so good we were kind of in shock, really, because it was, although we weren't enamoured with Oliver, his abilities were quite considerable. He's just a hugely talented man, and he wrote a very excellent first draft. The draft then became a second draft, and then the third draft, which was kind of to take in all of the different notes and things which people wanted. And also, I had found a rather unusual location in which to put the film. And so I had to adapt all of the rather eccentric geography and architecture and corridors and staircases of the main prison to the screenplay. Also, the ending of the film changed quite dramatically as we progressed through the filming process, which I'll talk about later. This is the truck coming into the main courtyard area of this fort called St Elmo, this Victorian fort built by the British in the 19th century. And we made into our own prison, taking advantage of different spaces. And as I said, different places like this, for instance, this was kind of scene that you set in something as dramatic as this, because the architecture and window light is so strong, and therefore a simple scene like cutting his hair starts to be that much more graphic and more powerful. We didn't really shoot in sequence. We cut his hair quite soon because a lot of the bulk of the film had to be done pretty early on, and therefore a lot of the scenes which we've seen where he had longer hair were rather ratty wig he was wearing a lot of the times in the earlier shots. I probably avoided saying it at the time because you probably spot how ratty and it was. The actor here, Paolo Bonicelli, was a wonderful actor. He came from Rome, and he had a false glass eye and false teeth, which made it quite uncomfortable for him. But again, he was an actor that had done quite good work in Italy, and he was a terrific actor. Quite why I went to Rome, I don't know. I suppose it's from seeing all those Fellini movies. I probably thought that would probably be the best place for catchment of characterful actors. I suppose the reason that I chose this strange Victorian fort as a prison is that to create a world of our own. I think that there's something very greedy about that, obviously from a production design point of view. Jeffrey Kirkland and I went to at least half a dozen different countries, saw many conventional prisons in Europe. And the great difficulty was that they are built for the task at hand, basically, to keep people incarcerated. And it's quite difficult to actually get a different feel to the film. Obviously, I didn't want a Western type prison, and so I suppose that's why I leaned towards this place, because in the end all the Fort Elmo was the exterior that you saw, and a number of interesting staircases as this one is, and I needed bigger spaces that we could build, so almost everything is found and then built on, so the fort itself became our film studio, really, so that these bars, for instance, would add to the graphic shape of the film, and the graphics of the and the look of the film, all of which we were able to do because we were creating a world of our own, really, as opposed to finding a prison. In the end, this place never was a prison. We made it into a prison. Paul Smith here, the actor who plays Amadou. I looked at many actors before I ended up with Paul Smith. Paul Smith was Israeli-American with an interesting resume. He'd been doing films in Italy, although I cast him actually in New York. He'd been doing films in Italy, where he famously did a spaghetti western where he carried a horse on his shoulders. The thing about Paul is that it was hard to explain to him that he shouldn't be hurting Brad with these things, but he went at it full pelt, and sometimes that kind of exploded. He sweated a lot too, which I then just kind of went with it really, because he sweated so much that it was a continuity nightmare. So we just went with a strange, wet kind of look, and him shaking the sweat off his head almost like an animal, like a horse. After that particularly unpleasant scene where we were watching someone actually supposedly hurting someone else. Obviously, film is an illusion where you try and recreate pain and violence, and mostly you do, but a lot of times in this film, the actors kind of did get hurt, and especially someone as committed as Brad. You have to be careful that you don't cross the line and into where people are just really hurt. And it's hard to explain to Paul Smith that to go easy, the stunt coordinator was forever explaining and showing him how to do things without physically hurting the actors. Here we see obviously Randy Quaid, who plays Jimmy Booth, and Norbert Weiser, who plays the Swedish character Eric. I had seen Randy Quaid in that fabulous film, The Last Detail he did, the Hal Ashby film he did with Nicholson. And he was pretty great, as was Norbert. This is one of the reasons why we came to the fort, really, is this huge area which is known as the Kogus, i.e. a big open area of the prison, which is a word that we'd got from the original book, is that if we'd have been in a conventional prison, we would have been in narrow staircases and tiny cells, but this big area, which we called the Kogus, actually, we're outside at the moment, but the inside part of the main prison, which Kogus was actually built as a set, which I could perhaps talk about later. Again, the whole thing here is, I suppose, when it comes to kind of film we're making, I mean, at the beginning of the movie, it says based on a true story. The truth is that it was based on a true story, but that didn't mean to say that it was a true story. I mean, in so much as if you think of the progress of the genesis and progress of the film, in that you had the real Billy Hayes, who was caught for smuggling drugs. He was convicted, and then he escaped. When he got back to the United States, he then did a publishing deal, and he did a book which was ghosted by William Hoffa. So what you have is the unreliable memories that we all have with Billy Hayes to what actually happened, and then hubris of what involves with when one finds oneself a celebrity, a notorious celebrity. And William Hoffa, the ghostwriter of that book, obviously had literary needs, and he would move the story further from what was actually the word truth. And then, of course, Oliver Stone, he wrote his screenplay, and the truth was moved even further away from what actually happened. And then I made the film, and every single day and every single decision I made from this place where we are, every decision I made moved truth almost certainly away from what actually happened, because I was making a movie. To me, it very, very obviously was our movie, set in our place, in our prison, and whatever that place might be, then it happened to be Turkey. But in that regard, I personally have never felt that that it was ever anti-Turkish in a way. I suppose one was, younger in those days. We wanted to make a point about the injustice and of disparate attitudes around the world to drugs. and obviously into harsh prison conditions in different prisons in different cultures. That was obviously part of what we wanted to do, and I think, pretty well we went headlong at that without much deeper political thought. Perhaps now, with the years gone by, well, intellectually and politically one might approach it somewhat differently. But I stand by the film in that never for 1 second did we think of it as being anti-Turkish, just as a terrific story to tell and a movie. And in the end, that's what it is. It's a movie. It flickers up there on the screen for a couple of hours and tells a particularly interesting story that we as artists try and tell as interestingly as possible. Here we have the wonderful John Hurt, British actor, plays the character Max. I had met with John in London before we started, and I very much wanted him to do the film. He'd had a huge success with a film called The Naked Civil Servant, where he played a gay character, Quentin Crisp. And John is one of the great British actors who's done many, many other great parts, which we won't go into, but he was just a rock, really, to have in these scenes. And I think that you can see here both Brad and Norbert watching him as students of acting, actually. Particularly, I think, in this scene, I always think the close-ups of them were they're playing the part, obviously, but in a way they're actually seeing this pretty terrific actor doing his stuff. He drew a picture when he first came in to see me, John Hurt, and he had a pair of glasses, and he cracked the glasses, and he had sort of Band-Aid and stuff on them, and they're stuck together with Scotch tape in the film. And I think that that character with that little wispy beard, which is his own wispy beard, as we'll talk about later, it was pretty well this wonderful drawing that he'd done for me, and that became the template for him. He also had this kind of, distant look all the time, slightly spaced out, because obviously Max was fixing herself with goodness knows what throughout, and John had this kind of spacey look, which is, probably helped along a bit by a white wine spritzer here and there, but he was pretty disciplined, and he was a wonderfully professional actor. The other aspect of him, of course, was that he made the decision that he didn't bathe for the entire film, which was pretty good in that he wanted to smell just like Max would have, but it didn't make him very popular in the bar at the Hilton Hotel where the crew was staying. But such a popular fellow is John that it didn't really matter that much. This, again, is a classic example of a set that we'd built within the confines of the actual real building. So you get the fabric and the texturized feel of a real place, but everything else, all the ironwork and bars and goodness knows what else, is actually added to us to make it more interesting. You have Mike Callan here, who played Billy's father, Mr. Hayes. Terrific doyen of Broadway acting, and he did pretty great. And I don't know that he was necessarily the easiest person to work with. He was quite strict with us all, and as always with really good actors, they want you to be on your toes. And I think as a director, really, your first job is to create an environment where everybody can be as good as they can be, and to create that environment, then the crew have to be pretty good too, because it's no point actors acting in a vacuum. If we don't get the shot, then the take becomes irrelevant. But I think that the most important thing is for a director to get the kind of trust of actors that he knows what he's doing with regards to what the crew are doing, and once that's achieved, then that trust is there. Then the actor can get on and do their thing. Because in the end, no director can manufacture a performance. It has to come from the actors, obviously. And sometimes you feel like you're dragging that performance out of the actors, but there are other times when they just get on and do their thing, and all you do is to create this world where they can be as good as they can be, and then it's your job to make sure that you shoot it correctly with regards to the choice of shots. You have two more actors, characters introduced. There you have the lawyer, a very dodgy lawyer called Jessel, who was played by Franco Diogini. Now, Franco had been cast in Rome too. Again, I don't know. He looks a bit like a Fellini casting to me. Probably why I went with it. But he had to look kind of shifty, which I think he is. The American consular official is played by Michael Ensign, who's actually a British actor who I had worked with on some smaller stuff in commercials and stuff in London, and I suppose it's like most directors kind of assemble a little rep company around them of people that they work with more than once. I tend not to work with actors more than once. I don't know why that should be. Kind of a selfish thing, really, in that, particularly principal actors, in that you feel that if they played that part, then that is the part. I mean, certainly I felt that about Brad. I mean, he could never be anything to me but Billy Hayes. I've talked to John Hurt about this many times, and John, who is a wonderful actor and a great pleasure to have around, and I suppose he could have been in many of my films, but I don't know why I didn't ever cast him again, and it's just a strange thing that I have of really, once he was that part, it was, in a way it sort of would betray this film or this part if I'd cast him in something else. By the same token, I suppose I feel the opposite way about film crew, in that I've worked with the same people over and over again. I said before, I was lucky enough to the principal people, particularly the producer Alan Marshall, who was always extraordinarily helpful to me. A great producer is someone who can really solve all the problems for you and support you. We were never ever loggerheads or anything like that. I also had Michael Saracen, great cinematographer, and his work, I think, is quite influential in this particular film, and a lot of people. The simplicity of the lighting, as you see here, in this courtroom situation, which was not a courtroom at all, really, but was a long corridor. The production designer, Jeffrey Kirkland, was kind of anguished when we had to find every single location, obviously, on a very small island. Malta is a small island. It's just a rock in the middle of the Mediterranean. And there was only one courtroom, which we didn't like very much. And so we were forever kind of scrambling around to find spaces in order to put our sets and to give it some kind of lift. I mean, here, the reason for me choosing the corridor is that I wanted depth behind these scenes, and not there, you don't. But when it comes to Billy, we positioned him in a particular way in order to get depth and of the archways and colonnade and windows behind, which graphically made it quite interesting. Here again, we've got a kind of mishmash of accents, which I kind of have to apologise for to anybody who's Turkish. But again, it really was to create a foreign world, and I suppose that in a way kind of narrow-minded of us, really, to think that this kind of mishmash language of sort of Armenian come Turkish come Italian, the prosecutor Kevork Malikian was I believe Armenian, and the Gigi Ballista, who's the chief judge, I kind of cast because he had a rather fantastic gravelly voice. Unfortunately, he had a rather fantastic gravelly Italian voice, but he ends up doing a sort of accent. This colonnade again was the same kind of building, monastery where we filmed the rest of the courtroom scene, but in a different corridor. We just took a wider corridor and made it into a courtroom, really. It was just a trick that we've used lots of times, which is to take a terrific piece of architecture and actually by adding to it, and Jeffrey putting in his bits and pieces from the railings and all this is, and the great wooden piece behind the chief judge here. All of that was brought in and built into this corridor of what was in fact just an old monastery, a very beautiful building. So you take advantage of a great piece of architecture. This is the first, obviously, of the courtroom sequences. This is when I don't know what he must have thought that he was going to get, really, with regards to sentencing, but I mean, 4 years was the first. 4 years and 2 months, they say. Well, it didn't seem to be too bad to me for putting 2 kilos of hash taped to your body, if that's what you're up to. But of course, it takes on a totally different light when those 4 years become something else, when it's transformed into the second courtroom sequence. I've mentioned Michael Saracen, who's a cinematographer, and we pretty well started our careers together. He made many films with me and is a very good friend. And the great thing about having someone who you happen to think is very good at what he does and also is your friend is that if you're in tough situations like this was, trying to make a movie in 53 days, well, you need great rapport with the people around you. Most importantly, you need great rapport with your camera department. That, of course, the most important person of which is the cinematographer, also the camera operator. In this case, John Stanier are hugely important, because if you're not getting on with them, then that just is a roadblock of the worst kind with regards to trying to make a movie. I mentioned Jeffrey Kirkland, the production designer, and Jerry Hambling, the editor. Jerry Hambling has actually cut almost every film I've ever done, and therefore there is a great trust with handing over the stuff to him, in that he obviously has a sensitivity of what each scene is trying to do. Sometimes a scene is covered in such a way that it can only be cut but one way. If you've choreographed something and it's in one shot, or there's things like this where there is quite an intricate move to come into the two shot here. And on other times, I've shot so much footage a scene could be cut together, a million different ways. But I think that someone like Jerry Hambling, because we've done so much together, and I think that most directors try and work with the same editor more than once. It doesn't always work that way. Some directors like to work with entirely different crews each time they feel like they like that challenge, but I kind of like to stick with the same crews. And again, this is a set all built in, all of this ironwork and everything built into what was just a very completely empty room.
Take good care of my boy, you hear? Or I'll have your fucking head, you Turkish bastard!
I think a lot of the anti-Turkish stuff, which comes from the heart of the original screenplay that Oliver wrote, when you look at it now, you there's stuff within it that you think, well, I guess if I was Turkish, I would be kind of a little upset by that, and probably might soften those things a bit now. But in the end, the film was made when it was made, and it was made exactly as we wanted to make it. There was very little interference from the studio and very little instruction, really. I mean, I think that the outside influences on what we were doing in Malta, because we were miles away from the studio, so we can kind of get on with what we wanted to do. And therefore, they kind of left us to what we were doing all the time. And I suppose the greatest contribution really to altering anything that we might have wanted to do, and I suppose came in the original writing stage. Oliver wrote his first draft in London, and then another draft, second draft, which changed quite considerably, in so much as originally the first draft that Oliver wrote was pretty truthful to the actual story, which meant that there were a number of prisons involved, and there was an island prison, which Billy eventually swims to a fishing boat and escapes. That was the first draft. The second draft conflated the prisons in so much as that we wanted it all to happen in one prison, because basically the moment that you went to a different prison, then a lot of your characters are no longer there. Great character of Max, obviously, and then the main antagonist, Amadou, the Paul Smith character, he's not there either. And so those things we changed by making the second draft into one prison. And then when things escalate, we went into the area called Section 13 for the criminally insane, which meant that we could stay in the same place and indeed keep all of the characters that we got to know and to like, and to characters we got to hate. That was the big change with regards to the second draft. The third draft really was to adapt it to this strange, eccentric place. And then the other changes I made whilst we were shooting, which were relevant to the ending, I suppose brought on by the fact that the film ending or needed to end in a different way and have a different logic for how it ended, in that there was no swimming to fishing boats, so we had to figure out other ways for the film to end, and we'll come to those a little later with regards to the changes that I made. A lot of these scenes again are when you're doing violent scenes in what is quite a brutal film, I admit, a lot of this stuff is can be kind of hard to take. There are a few scenes which we're going to come up to which are very difficult to take for audiences, in that we're filmmakers are always involved in what is an illusion, and then of course along comes someone like Paul Smith, who takes off his glasses and takes off his mohair suit, jacket and hat, and then proceeds to smack these kids' feet. And I think that I had to say cut before he actually made contact with the kids. Otherwise, they might have felt some pain. The mohair suit reminds me that the costume designer is Milena Canonero, who he's usually not known for her dirty movies. She does much prettier things normally, and very brilliantly she does them too, as 3 Academy Awards will testify. This was very different kind of film for her, but I must say she completely got into it, even though it's not the beautiful lace finery that she's known for.
Then there's Rifki. The more I know of him, the more I hate him.
It's very strange looking at films that you made some years ago, and when one is doing these commentaries, it's even stranger with this film, because it's 30 years now, and it's just a long time. And I suppose you look back on it, and it becomes. Sometimes I've woken up in the middle of the night when I've been jet lagged or whatever, and switched on the TV and seen the film running, and it runs for like quite a few minutes, and you think this looks rather interesting, and then you suddenly realise that it's your movie. And I've been looking at it now, I have that kind of feeling, really, that because I suppose the person that made it, I was 30 years younger, I was a different person, obviously we all were, and just looking at it, it looks, I don't have that instant connection to it, so it's always hard. I think most directors think that when they do these commentaries, is that you try and figure out why you made a particular choice at that moment in time. Of course, it looks rather different when you look back on it now. Kind of choices that we would have made different choices with regards to the original writing of the piece, with regards to our attitudes perhaps to Turkey, because it certainly has been difficulty with regards to how the Turkish people took to it when the film first came out and subsequently. But having said that, I think that you could go back and change movies, I suppose. But I don't agree with that. I'm still very proud of it. The one thing that, looking at it as an audience here, sitting here, doing this commentary, you do start to look at it as others might have seen it, as opposed to you as the filmmaker. Because when you're making it and you've shot it, you're so involved with it. You become quite blinkered, as you should be, because nobody's going to make a good film if they're not single-minded about what kind of film that they want to do. And I think we were always very single-minded about the kind of film that it is. But even though one might look back at, perhaps there should have been a few more pleasant Turks than we showed in the actual film, and perhaps we should have done that. And when you see those films about the Nazi Germany, there's always a good Nazi. Well, we kind of avoided that, and I think at the time we thought we were being brave by doing that. But I think perhaps we could have accommodated that without destroying the film as it is. And but having looked at it again, whatever the intellectual or political heart of it is that could have been changed. I think that the actual filmmaking still looks good to me, and I'm still very proud of what we did. And I think it still holds up as a piece of filmmaking. This is a scene with the dead cat. The cat actually was drugged, and as you have to, they obviously can't hurt a cat, and therefore the cat was okay afterwards, had to be resuscitated. It's a very powerful scene, and I find it quite hard to look at this scene because John is particularly poignant within it, and obviously anything which has animals is very tough to take. And so I'll talk about the area that we see here, which is again this Kogus, which I touched upon at the beginning of the film. This big area was the reason that one of the reasons we wanted to be in the fort, because this was all built, as I say, in the corner of the big fort. It's built out the same limestone as the rest of the St Elmo fort, and gave us a great space to work. And it became the whole area of the fort ceased to be a location. Really, it became like our own private film studio, because we used every single nook and cranny and corridor and staircase that we possibly could, and because the whole fort area was completely empty, we were able to do as we pleased, really. And so every room or area became the camera department, or the production design department, art department, editing. The whole fort became our film studio, which was great in that it concentrated all of our energies into one place. One of the reasons, I suppose, that I was adamant that it should be cinematically interesting, the location, is that obviously the bulk of the film takes place in the prison. In fact, nearly all of the film takes place in the prison. Wasn't always that way, in that in the original script that we went to Malta to shoot, that the studio wanted us to shoot, there was in fact a fourth act which had Billy running away at the Turkish-Greek border, and he was chased by tanks, and a whole palaver went on, which we were originally asked to shoot. But then I'll talk about that later with regards to having to change that. And it once was a film about escape, I suppose. It is about escape. That's what Midnight Express means, after all. But as Alan Marshall once said, perhaps the studio wanted a film about escape, but we made them a film about imprisonment. And there is obviously a very slight difference. This was quite difficult to achieve with regard to how we were going to get them out of this prison. It was on our minds all the way along, in so much as that the original story and Oliver's original screenplays had called for sort of shafts in the wall and catacombs and things which were beneath the actual supposed Sekmal-Shilar prison. That modern prison being built on some older building, I suppose, was the logic, and therefore there might have been such an escape route. I mean, the old air shaft that you usually escape from in the usual cliche prison movie. There was no air conditioning shafts at all in this prison, and I think that it was quite difficult with regards to Jeffrey Kirkland trying to figure out, for me, where they might go and how we might solve the problem of them digging their way out of it. And we basically, our theory was that the Victorian fort where we were was riddled with interesting bits and pieces, of which 80% of which we couldn't even use, really, and was a huge percentage which we couldn't even see. And we kept racking our brains, which is when we ended up with a shaft, which we'll see when they do ultimately escape, which actually was nowhere near where this particular location was. But then there was this gigantic cisterna, which was to catch the water. Just an old-fashioned water tank, basically, which we then ultimately used for the escape. But it was one of the difficulties we had, apart from I think it was the most difficult thing, apart from figuring out how they were going to actually get out of the prison ultimately, which we'll come to in a second or in a few minutes. Otherwise, this wonderful place kind of gave us everything we needed in the way of locations, whether it be using a balcony as we are here or some eccentric part of it. It actually, the fort itself becomes almost an extra character in the film, and I think that really is quite important, and why the film has such an unusual look. The John here, just looking at John and Randy, I mean, Randy, of course, was always good-humoured throughout the whole thing. I think he put the fear of God in us one day when he arrived with a broken arm and his neck all in plaster. And it was turned out to be a complete hoax, but it did manage to give the producers, Alan Marshall and David Putnam, a complete heart attack, which, of course, is part and parcel of what Randy intended in the first place. John, playing that sort of flaky, spaced-out character that he does with Max, might look like he's kind of weak, but John is a very strong actor, very experienced actor, obviously, and he was amazingly paternal to Brad Davis. He was very helpful to Brad, because Brad, as we've spoken about, and gave everything to the making of this film. And John was very helpful to him, took him under his wing. And John, I suppose, was kind of surprised to find someone who was even more eccentric than John was, and with regards to Brad's antics before doing a scene which included handstands and press-ups and peeing into a bucket before he did a take. Again, you show blood and you show violence in them, and it's all an illusion, but it bit by bit it adds up to more than an illusion, really.
Dear Susan, poor Jimmy was caught and beaten so badly he got a severe hernia and lost a testicle. He's been in the sanitarium for months. In comparison, my problems seem very small.
When you're
But 2.5
trying to add a little texture like that guy with the bag,
the Turks
a lot of things, obviously, the original clues are in the book, and then you try and add your own textural parts to things. This is one of the most difficult scenes in that we were damned if we did and we were damned if we didn't in how we did it with regards to the gay nature of the relationship. For me, it was extraordinarily important that we had it in the film. The studio were not comfortable with it from the very beginning. The kissing in the showers was a scene that Oliver had written, and with a great deal of groping, etc. I was adamant that we did the scene and that we had this relationship because in a very tough and brutal film, it was important to have a moment of tenderness. It was as much that, from my own heterosexual point of view, as it was a homosexual scene. But of course, we were onto a hiding to nothing, really, because if we'd have gone too far, then the studio would have cut the scene out completely. And by, perhaps not going as far as I might have done, I would have, alienated perhaps the gay audience. But in a way, I think it's a good balance, and I make no bones about what we tried to do. In that it's a moment of tenderness of one human being towards another, something that would be desperately needed in a place like this prison that we had created. We showed the scene to the studio pretty soon after we'd shot it. They didn't see dailies whilst we were making the film, but David Putnam took this scene with other scenes that we'd done to Rome, where Daniel Melnick, who was the head of the studio at the time, saw the scenes, and he thought that we'd gone a bit too far. But he was a big supporter of the film, Daniel Melnick, and he kind of came round to seeing the need for that particular scene, and I suppose seeing it in context is much more important with regards to the relevance of that tender moment that was required between these two friends forced together in this horrible place. It was a moment of friendship that he accepted, and although I think the studio would have been quite happy to lose that entire scene, it was an important scene for all of us to put in, and seeing it there again, I think it was filmed, as the cliche goes, with the greatest possible taste, and is in fact, I think, a very emotional and visually very beautiful part of the film, and I'm very pleased that we did it.
Okay. I've been thinking about another way
Another way what?
out of here.
Oh, yeah?
When I was in the sanitarium, there was only one guard on my ward. I could have got out of there any time I wanted to.
Why didn't you?
Because as soon as I could walk again, they threw me right back in here.
Lucky you.
But I tell you, Billy, there was another ward in that sanitarium that had no guard on it at all.
Who was in it?
3 guys.
Brad gave almost more than one could expect from an actor.
I think they were dead.
With regards to this part, I know that a great deal has been said and written by others with regards to his particular psyche, or state of mind, I should say, with regards to how he made the film. But the original idea of Richard Gere doing it kind of petered out anyway, because Richard Gere didn't want to do it, and I was in Rome casting when I got the news, and I was kind of pleased in a way, because it meant that we could go straight to Brad, who, unlike Richard, Brad desperately wanted to do the film and became the film of his life, in fact. And he gave so much to the film, and I think that certainly he went a little crazy when he did the film. There are certainly scenes where he is on the edge of being in control or out of control. In that regard, it was my responsibility to reel him in, to make sure that that what we were achieving was relevant to our film, and not just someone who was living the part, which, you know, happened a lot. There were some scenes where I thought we had gone a little too far, and it's scenes coming up that we'll talk about how far one goes as a filmmaker, how far is it real, and how much of it is an illusion. This particular scene where Billy gets the news that he had 53 days left on his original sentence, and it's been commuted to life sentence. He's going to be there for the rest of his life. Getting that kind of news was pretty tough. This is the scene I used to read with all of the actors when I was casting, in fact, and it's a very powerful scene. And it makes me laugh every time I hear 53 days. That's all he had, 53 days, which is ironically all we had, 53 days to make the movie. Exactly the same number of days. This scene in the courtroom, second courtroom scene, it's a very powerful speech that Brad delivers quite brilliantly. We did it many, many times. And it's a speech that stays pretty well exactly as Oliver had written it from his very, very first draft.
What is punishment? It seems to vary from time to time, place to place. What's legal today is suddenly illegal tomorrow because some society says it's so. And what's illegal yesterday is suddenly legal because everybody's doing it. And you can't put everybody in jail. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. But I've spent 3.5 years of my life in your prison, and I think I've paid for my error. And if it's your decision today to sentence me to more years, then my lawyer, that's a good one. He says, be cool, Billy. Don't get angry, don't get upset. Be good. And I'll get you a pardon, an amnesty, an appeal, or this, or that, the other thing. Well, this has been going on now for 3.5 years. And I've been playing it cool. I've been good. And now I'm damn tired of being good. Because you people gave me the belief that I had 53 days left. You hung 53 days in front of my face, and then you just took those 53 days away. And you, boo! I just wish you could be standing where I'm standing right now and feel what that feels like, because then you would know something that you don't know, Mr. Prosecutor. Mercy. You would know that the concept of a society is based on the quality of that mercy, its sense of fair play, its sense of justice. But I guess that's like asking a bear to shit in a toilet. For a nation of pigs, it sure is funny you don't eat them. Jesus Christ forgave the bastards, but I can't. I hate you. I hate your nation, and I hate your people. And I fuck your sons and daughters because they're pigs. You're a pig. You're all pigs.
I didn't say anything whilst that was going on. I thought it was important to listen to that speech. It's probably that speech which is Oliver Stone at his best and at his worst, I suppose, and we're all complicit in that, particularly also because it's probably that speech which is so powerful, so dramatic, is what got us into the most trouble with regards to how people have seen it as an anti-Turkish, anti-one particular country. So particularly the latter parts of the speech, just listening to it again, I don't know. I mean, would I do that now? Probably not. But at the time it was thought to be we did think it was a very, very powerful piece of drama, which undoubtedly it is. But what it says is, I don't think for 1 second we started to worry what Turkish people might think at that moment in time, and maybe we should have done in that regard. I think that perhaps we would look at it slightly differently now, but I still stand by what the film is all about. The old judge, by the way, in that scene, the old boy with the gravelly voice, I don't quite know what language he's speaking, but it's meant to be Turkish. With the phrase was "Geçmiş olsun," I think was the phrase, and which means "may it pass quickly." A phrase which was taken up by everybody and became the catchphrase for the crew, who at that moment in time wanted the whole film to pass quickly. And so we thought it was apt that we made up T-shirts which said exactly that. So the T-shirt from the film says Geçmiş olsun, with made in Sigmoshila prison. Actually, it wasn't made in Sigmoshila, but in Fort St. Elmo. These scenes were, I suppose, were us trying to find the hidden passageways out of this old place. Truth is, this particular prison was built in such a way that it was pretty solid, I have to say. But we had built on to this real building our own set, and so we had this wonderful combination of what looked real and looked like would be around for another 100 years. Actually, it was a film set which we were able then to manufacture our escape with regards to getting these stones out of the walls. Again, I have to say that the necessity of trying to find out how to get out of this prison was something that preoccupied us for practically the entire time we were making the movie. These scenes of an attempted escape were always part of the original story, because it's this that and their inability to get out, and or the discovery of this escape, which actually is what prompts the big scene between Billy and the character Rifki, which then ends up in him getting thrown into Section 13. So these scenes were always here. Originally, in the first draft of the screenplay, we didn't have the Rifki scene. It wasn't Rifki who got when Brad goes crazy, or I should say when Billy goes crazy in character. Originally that scene was a scene written going crazy at Amidou, which doesn't happen, and now in a very different way it happens later. And that was one of the big changes that we made from the first draft, which was close to the book, of him swimming to fishing boats and escaping from an island, as I mentioned earlier. That was one of the big changes. But a lot of things, therefore, had to be replaced or reconstructed because of having made the decision to make the whole thing one prison. Pretty good job of acting those two boys did there with that very heavy stone made of polystyrene. This was an odd part of the film, really, for me, because I suppose we were venturing into more conventional waters, in so much as we were doing an old-fashioned escape movie at this moment in time, and I suppose these elements were in the story, and because a lot of people in the studio wanted an old-fashioned escape movie, and I always felt kind of strange. I remember when I was filming them, because it's kind of easy stuff in a way, in that it takes the pressure off of what you're doing, because so much of everything else that we'd done was so wrought with drama and pain that we kind of had it's almost like having a holiday, really, whilst we did the more conventional kind of escape stuff. It's a bit like being in Stalag 13 or whatever, and you get on with it. And I felt like, as much as you try to make everything that's within the film as original as you've seen, we were in rather conventional territory, I think, for this escape. This shaft actually was not found at St Elmo. It was found Little White Whale. It's the only thing that we couldn't find at the fort. It looks like a very easy thing to do, actually, but this was a real water shaft, and a real well, I should say. And we were at the bottom of it filming. The first thing that you find out when you do these kind of scenes, if you're at the bottom, that's basically myself and a camera operator and a camera assistant and no one else. You're up to your neck in water, and goodness knows what else was down there. And the moment they start to come down, then all the rocks and stones fall on top of your head. So I remember shouting up to the assistant director, I said, could we have some guards' helmets down here, because just to protect ourselves, because the camera assistant got hit on the head with a rock. And so I asked for the guards' helmets, and the assistant director said it'll take a while. And then about 10-20 minutes later, I said, where on earth are the helmets? And assistant director arrived with 2 guards in helmets. And I said, what would I need guards in helmets at the bottom of a water shaft for? He'd misheard me, and it was only the helmets were required. The guards were sent back to their trailers. Again, this this is made up of different locations and in different times, and it's always hard when you're putting it together. It looks like it's continuous, but in fact it's done over a period of a couple of weeks in different places, because we couldn't obviously find exactly the stuff that in one complete place, and on our budget everything had to be found and could be enhanced, of course, and built onto, but basically it was it had to be found, and so we this is the sort of thing that you would, with a sufficient budget, you'd very easily build this kind of thing. It would be part of the production design, but we had to find the real place, and indeed this enormous underground cisterna was part of the actual fort, and it basically is all they needed was a dead end, but it was a very graphic building that we found in order to tell the story and to show their disappointment, I suppose, at the fact that what would seem like a possibility of escape is not going to be that way. But again, I think the whole of this escape kind of excursion was kind of a bit of curiosity to me, because it didn't really fit in with the rest of the film in a way, and I can't really explain why. I think it's because it has conventional roots, albeit we tried to film it in a graphically more interesting way. Now we come to the difficult scene in that Rifki discovers these stones. Every time I see the film, I didn't know why he didn't discover them in the first place, because they seemed to be right behind him there. This scene was kind of hard to do in that, again, Paul Smith had a bit of difficulty with the other actors, or rather I should say the other actors had a bit of difficulty with Paul. Paul was a very physical actor. He liked to really, as they say in London, he liked to give it some welly, and he didn't hold back in how he would do the scenes, and we had a very excellent stunt coordinator in Roy Scammell, who choreographed the fights for me, and a lot of the time he would spend with Paul to show him the way in which you would do something where you give the impression and the illusion that you can hurt someone, but you don't actually physically hurt them. In other words, I think Paul went a bit too far at times. He grabbed hold of John Hurt's wispy beard at one moment in time, and you could hear the hairs being ripped out of his chin. I think that was when we started to realise that we had to be a bit careful.
I know what I'm going to do.
What?
I'm going to cut his fucking throat.
Who?
Rifki.
It's interesting to see John and how messed up and vulnerable he is as a character and thing. Of course, he's in complete control, and as I said, he appears to be the weak one here, and Brad strong. But Brad, although he gave his all to the film, he found it hard, and he emotionally, particularly in the more difficult emotional scenes, he really did go to the outer limit of perhaps his abilities as an actor, which is, I think brave, and all actors expect that at times. But ironically, John here is always the weaker character, but in fact, John did take Brad under his wing and was very helpful to him. And as I said earlier with the Norbert scenes, Norbert Weiser, that they were all in awe of where John was with regards to his performance. John did get nominated for Academy Award for Supporting Actor for this role, and quite deservedly so. Sadly, he didn't win, but I think he won a few other awards for it, so probably made up for it. But a pleasure, really, to work with him, and was greatly loved by Brad and the other actors, which is a great sign in any film, really. I mean, it's, they don't necessarily have to like one another in order to do good work. In fact, you don't need necessarily a happy, chummy film set to do good work. In fact, a lot of films are made out of conflict, sometimes between the actors themselves, sometimes between the actors and the director or the filmmakers. But it's preferable if everybody gets on, but it isn't a necessity.
I never played it.
Again, just looking at this, it's I remember how intense it was for all of us, really. I think that we all went a bit crazy, particularly when you're doing scenes like we're about to see. Again, it's all set in our big main set, which is our Kogas, which we had complete control of, and again, it's a combination of a real place and a set, and I did a film once called Pink Floyd The Wall, which some critics said, well, when I ran out of ideas, Alan Parker always goes on an exercise of violence, and I suppose that there's something very satisfying about building a set and then completely destroying it. But we approached this scene with some trepidation, really, because of the violence that's about to occur with regards to the fight. Also, there was kind of an explosion amongst the actors when we were doing the scene with Paul Smith and John Hurt, which was a little unfortunate, but we saw it coming, I suppose, and I'll try and explain that to everyone when it arrives. This is a nice character in the film, and it's a pity I didn't make him Turkish, because then there would have been a nice Turk in it. Everybody kept moaning at me that there wasn't in this film. It's interesting, but we were pretty single-minded about what we wanted to do, as I've said before, and I think that the error that there aren't a few more jolly Turkish people in it probably is a mistake. And we took our cue from the book, which similarly doesn't have too many nice people in it, but this was a jovial character who I'd cast in London.
Really, what?
It's bad. They sent him to the city hospital. They ruptured his hernia again.
Oh, shit.
I guess he didn't talk. Poor bastard.
Again, we're raising the stakes here prior to the scene which we're about to see with Refki. Again, Paolo Bonicelli was an Italian actor who was pretty great. I stressed that he had to play the whole scene, every scene, the whole film with false teeth, which were kind of blackened and crooked and hideous. But they were a complete set of false dentures, and he also had a milky left eye, which we were always very careful about, because obviously it's quite dangerous when Paul Smith comes along and starts to smack him around, and it was during this scene that we had this explosion, because amongst the actors, Paul was basically just a very physical actor, and it didn't seem, whatever we said, didn't listen. He did listen to me there because he's smacking him, and he was getting closer and closer to that milky eye, and I was worried that the false eye might break and then would cause some damage. He did, on an early take, he did break the false teeth as he smacked him across the face. But and then this was the scene where originally he grabs at John's wispy beard before taking the glasses, and that's when we heard the hairs actually pulled out of the skin, which was pretty horrible. And I think that's when John exploded.
No, he's lying, Rip. He's lying. He's a liar. Matt, no. Let me go, damn you. Matt, go. No way. Go away. Get out of here.
This kind of exploded into this seemingly out of control fight. Was actually choreographed by the stunt coordinator Roy Scammell, and we rehearsed it on our day off. We only had one day off, and we did it over 2 Sundays, which was rehearsal, and then we just let them at it. I mean, although it was seemingly spontaneous, it's very carefully choreographed, and great use of John Stanier's ability with regards to handheld camera. It's handheld but shot on multiple takes, so they're all cut together. But so probably continuity goes a bit out of the window at times, but particularly when Brad is out of control as he is now, because you never know if he's going to actually hurt himself, cut his arm, what he's going to smash. And so a lot of this was done as it happened. It's as violent as you see, and there's no doubt when you're doing a scene like this, particularly this is the kind of thing where Brad would actually just go hell for leather. He didn't really care what happened to himself, if he hurt himself or whatever, but he went at it, and there's no doubt when you see him here, he is already at the beginnings of being slightly out of control, and that's very worrying for a director, but you kind of try and keep him as real as possible, even though you're not quite sure what's happening. This particular scene was very kind of horrible to do, and I was kind of carried away doing it, actually. Just Brad grabs him and smashes him and then turns him over and bites out his tongue. This was actually written by Oliver from the very first screenplay. This was actually one of the very strong scenes that we had of this. And the biting of the tongue and the spitting out is him out of control. It's the crew watched me do this scene, and they kind of withdrew to the back of the set. They really didn't want much to do with it. It was pretty horrible to do, even though it's all an illusion, and that was not a real tongue but a pig's tongue. But when you see photographs of me making the film, you can see that I'm probably as much out of control as making the movie, or as intense anyway as Brad here, who has become something else. He's no longer Billy Hayes. This really is the end of, what would be traditionally the second act, where we go to this new place, which we had called Section 13 for the criminally insane. Again, this was a replacement for what had originally been an island prison, the island of Imrali, and that had to be changed, and because we wanted everything to still be condensed. Because by going to another prison, or even 3 prisons as it was originally, you let the top off of the pressure cooker, and by keeping it in one place, you can retain your same characters. A lot of the extras, I have to say, in this film were mentally ill themselves, and again, this is something that you look at with some kind of maturity, and you wonder how smart that was. And they had a great time out. They gave me a nice present at the end, which and everyone involved was very pleased. But there are times when you start to think, how much of real life should you inject into what is in fact a charade, an illusion, and that becomes very hard for a director, and particularly as I say, if you're working with the intensity that myself and the crew and the actors were working through the film, you kind of lose sight of the outside world, quite frankly, and you become as crazy as the people within the film. It's interesting looking here because I think this is about the time when we were doing these intense scenes when the executive producer Peter Guber arrived with a press junket with the real Billy Hayes. It was very interesting to meet Billy Hayes. I had never met him before because I suppose we wanted to create our own Billy Hayes, and that was the character that you see in front of you now. As far as I'm concerned, it was Brad Davis, green-eyed, dark hair with a cleft chin, and then we saw the real Billy Hayes, who was very pale complexion with blonde curly hair and a big bushy moustache, and he was a very different person. And then I watched his facility with the press and his enjoyment of his newfound celebrity, and I think it was a good idea that we created our own character instead of meeting early on and being too close to what his real personality is. And in that, we created our world, our movie, and our Billy Hayes, and it's probably quite away from the original. This scene was actually not done at the fort. This was 5 minutes down the road, and for us to find this particular building, I think we needed to do this crazy wheel scene, which I thought was very powerful, actually, from Oliver's screenplay. And we built the centre hub, I think, in order to get them walking this way. The character who plays Ahmet, who is this Englishman, odd Englishman with a name like Ahmet, found in the Section 13 for the criminally insane. Such is our dramatic stretching of events. I was able to cast the very brilliant British actor Peter Jeffrey here. It's always a reminder to me, really, the difference between British acting and American acting, and that American acting is very much spontaneous and can be fresher and more original because of that, and often is very dangerous because you don't quite know what you're going to get. But on the other hand, I suppose because of the theatrical background of most British actors, it's a little more conventional in that you kind of do know what you're going to get, but with that comes an extraordinary technical ability to be able to put the same kind of inflections and subtleties into each take, and it doesn't matter what the angle is, it's always brilliant. And it's kind of nice sometimes because it's very good for a director to know exactly what he's going to get. And although we court danger with every scene that we shoot, really, then sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of traditional knowing what you're going to get. Again, these scenes are graphically very powerful. In this kind of make-believe world, really, again, because Section 13 didn't exist. We invented it because we didn't want to go to Imrali prison, really, on the island. So it becomes a fiction there and then. And so I had visited a mental hospital prison when I went on my recce to Istanbul before the film, on scout, looking at everything. And when I visited Segmoshala, I also visited another prison for the mentally ill, and that's where we got the idea of putting the white coats on top of the prison uniform, which is a bit silly, really, but it kind of gave a sort of medical, pseudo-medical feel to the place, which is kind of ironic considering how hideous and horrid the whole place is. But we actually did see the white coats on top of the uniforms when we went to the prison, and so it was pretty authentic. This was one of the most traumatic scenes. Traumatic, that is, and dramatic. I know I've said that a number of times because, if anything, the film is made up of many traumatic scenes, which makes it, the whole journey that much more harrowing from the point of view of the audience watching it and me trying to recount how we were and what we were thinking and what we felt at the time.
Billy, your family's fine.
This particular scene was a scene that we had rehearsed many times. In fact, it was the scene with the Susan character that we had used in the audition process, and it was always going to be a difficult scene. And for some reason, Brad was very apprehensive about doing this scene. I don't know that he got on very well with Irene Miracle, but he wanted to become a little closer to her in order for him to be able to play this scene, but I don't think that was happening. And so the scene was really hard, and he really agonised over doing it, and he was dreading doing it, and he would come up to me every day and say, "Oh my goodness, next Thursday we have to do it." And he kind of didn't really want to do the scene. Obviously, you know, it's a very powerful scene, and Irene being very brave here with regards to what she has to do. And on the morning that we were about to do the scene, Brad, to get a little confidence, took a slug of brandy. And then, unfortunately, what happens in these cases, the camera broke, and that was actually our second camera that had broken in 2 days. So we had a wait while the guys took the cameras to pieces, and so Brad had another slug and another slug and another slug of brandy. So by the time he came to do the film, the scene originally, he wasn't quite capable of doing it. So I had to abandon this scene halfway through, and we kind of come back the next day, and I think Brad was full of remorse for messing everybody up. So he was then able to do the scene, but it's not the kind of scene that both actors really were keen to do, because it's very tough, and I think it's one of the most powerful scenes. It's a scene that's been aped and copied, and people have done comedy sketches as well on it, and it's one of the more famous scenes from the film. And it's a scene that, because I remember it for a bottle of brandy and the Arriflex camera breaking, I sometimes forget the actual dramatic content of the film, which of course no one else is concerned about. I don't even know if anyone's interested in that story I just told, but it took 2 days to do instead of one. And when you were on a schedule as tight as us, and it's kind of difficult. We had 2 cameras because we were in Malta. It's probably not, there was no time really for get a backup camera out. And because of the nature of the cameras these days, they are very electronic, and even 30 years ago they were. And in fact, it was a circuit board that had broken in the camera. But I'm sorry to have talked over that entire dramatic scene, which was infinitely more interesting to watch it than me gabble on, so I'll shut up for a bit.
You stay here, you'll die. Jesus Christ, you've got to get yourself together. You've got to get out of here. Oh.
Just looking at this, it's again, it's a real building, but made into a set by the centre hub there, which is built into it. And I think that by the time we did this scene, which is really quite surreal, which is why we had to be in a place like this, and why I think the world we were creating was beyond being in the Sekmelshila prison, Istanbul, Turkey. This was some weird world that we'd all contrived, a world of this movie. And it's the nature of scenes like this and this place and the way in which we've actually pushed reality further and further and further away, that it has it's no semblance to the original. It has become a world of its own, which is the world of the illusion of this particular film. And I think that's part of storytelling, is to create this world. I mean, I don't know what Billy Hayes must have thought when he first saw this particular scene, because this is so surreal and so nothing to do with the world that he lived in, because it's pushed everything to its extremity, out of the madness of all of our minds. We've created this place and filmed it in a place which was kind of beyond the norm. This is it's a little piece of hell, really, here, and that's a cinematic visual interpretation of probably what the original story was about, but it's nothing to do with the real story. And so in that regard, I'm coming back to the same point I make over and over again, really, which is that it's not about Sekmelshila prison anymore. It's not about Turkey anymore, really. It's about a movie. And I think that's always been very important to me with regards to what Midnight Express is. And which is why I feel that, I'm as proud of it now as I ever was. It's given Turkish people perhaps a lot of difficulties over the years because of joining the European Union and all those things, but to tell you the truth, I don't think that's the reason. In the end, it's just a film. It just flickers up there for 2 hours, and it's a particular nature. It's a very, very powerful and strong film, and in that regard, I think that we can either stand by it or not, and I do. Nice little scene here, which we've obviously borrowed from Cuckoo's Nest when refusing to take the pills. Again, sad character there from the original hospital, and they did enjoy themselves on the days that they were filming, I was told. But look back now, and I think I don't know I would do that again, to use real people who happen to be so unfortunate. There have been occasions when I've done scenes in films where you can't. It's an illusion, and I think the bottom line is that everything has to be created as an illusion. You try and mix reality and documentary feel to things just to create some truth, really. But again, looking at the images here, all of these things were created to. This world belonged nowhere but in our minds, really, because the place we created, which was Jeffrey Kirkland and I imagined. I did lots of scribbles for Jeffrey of every scene and every location, and then Jeffrey went away and he would put his interpretation of what I'd scribbled, and a combination of the place where we were, the Michael Saracen's light, which creates this visual image in front of you as much as anything else, and Michael's lighting was very, very revolutionary for the time, and went on to influence many cinematographers. There's no doubt about it. But faced with this world that we've created, you start to think again, it's the world of Midnight Express, the movie, and not a great deal to do with Billy Hayes in Sekmelshila prison, Istanbul. The reason we were in Section 13 in the same prison is because, of course, scenes like this, which we would not be able to have done if Billy had been thrown out of this prison and sent to another prison after the fight with Rifki, or, as it was in the first draft of the screenplay, a fight with Amadou. So this goodbye scene is only possible because we've kept the whole thing in the same prison. Many years after making the film, someone said they had written a screenplay, or they were going to make a movie called Midnight Express 2, where Billy goes back to rescue dear old Max, who's still in the prison. I think they were going to have a helicopter arrive in the courtyard or something. Dreadful idea. I'm glad they didn't make the film. They often talk about remaking your films, commitments, fame they're going to remake, they say. But for a filmmaker, it's kind of, it's like being mugged, really. I'm doing anything really not to make a sequel. This tiny scene, 2 scenes there, were actually shot back in Shepperton Studios in London, with the only things that we did in the studio. It was really, we needed to clarify the actual security arrangements of Section 13, otherwise he kind of walked straight out, really, to try and bribe Amadou with the money. This really leads us to the ending, really, of the film. Originally, in the first draft, he swam to a fishing boat. In the second draft, he ends up smashing Amadou senseless, and I needed to find a way of ending the film, because in the draft we'd gone to Malta to shoot, there was still a fourth draft which enabled, or had Billy rushing to the Turkish border, as we said. An elaborate fourth act which we ended up not filming, which I'll talk about in a second. This is a very irritating scene to me, because I've had so many letters about it. Apparently, not only can you see the sound man's boom in the shot, you can actually see on the video versions the sound man himself holding the boom. I mean, that's a first. But in the early days of video, no one asked us to be involved with the actual making of the video, so hence that's now gone in the wonderful new DVD that you're going to be watching. Now, this scene was choreographed by Roy Scammell when we were shooting the whole death of Amadou. Originally, as I said, he was going to be beaten senseless in the script, but we changed all that whilst we were filming, because we didn't want a murder on our hands with Billy Hayes, because that wouldn't have been correct. And obviously, Billy couldn't really beat this huge man up, so we needed some kind of accident, and it was the whole peg receding into the wall or going into his head. In fact, was a set up to recede, a peg receding into the wall. That was a trick. All that was worked out whilst we were filming, in order to give a reason or a way in which we can get Billy out of there without him having blood on his own hands. We didn't want him to become the same kind of hideous figure that saw himself dead there. So that's the reason for the accident, and that the stunt coordinator, Roy Scammell, gets credit for that, because that was all his idea. At one point, it was suggested, well, should he blow him away? Well, no, he can't blow him away, and the reason he can't blow him away is for the reason that I've said earlier, is that he doesn't want to become the same kind of human being that you see there. And if there's any dignity and ability or what left in this person after what he's been through, then he is able to not pull that trigger. We had this area was sort of Turkish bath kind of feel to it. It was obviously a set here, because the walls had to be somewhat softer than real walls. We had shown the uniforms, and so we had been able to continue this thought, which is, and then this was from the original screenplay, which was him dressing up as a guard. And in the original script, he actually walked straight out of the prison, which when you're making a film in a prison, you know that's not that easy. So although we're in the guards, ostensibly in the guards area here, we kind of changed that. And I had come up with this idea of the keys to his freedom being actually handed to him, which I thought was kind of ironic, really. And so he comes up to the last gate guard, and your heart stops a little bit because you think, well, is he now going to be caught for having come this far? And then suddenly, out of nowhere, the keys are then thrown to him. And so we kind of did that scene whilst we were there in Malta, really to take advantage of this rather interesting piece of architecture here. All the Turkish stuff here I had found in the market in Istanbul, and it came in very handy because we kind of sprinkled it all the way through the film. The heartbeat, of course, very important here. We've come full circle with regards to the use of it, and indeed that phrase of music from Giorgio Moroder. The keys are thrown, and that's his freedom. And then as he goes to the door, I remember when I did the shot, when we shot it, I remember thinking that the moment that key goes into the door, and then he opens the door. You see the light, he sees the light, and he feels the fresh air, and we feel the fresh air for the first time. And the moment that happened, that you suddenly, somehow you weren't in Sekmal Shidar anymore. You were at the end of his time there, and you're at the end of our journey. And I felt very strongly that we were, most importantly, at the end of our movie. Of course, the film should have gone on for another fourth act, but we told the studio that we wanted to end here. They said they'd sue us, but we ended up convincing them, let's cut it together, and if you like it, we'll stick to how we've done it. We took it to Los Angeles, the first cut, and they agreed that this would be the end of the movie, and the whole chase with army and dogs and goodness knows what at the border, which was a conventional kind of movie, didn't really fit with the film that we'd already filmed. This is the last time where you think after all of this, knowing he's going to get caught. I kind of borrowed this scene from the end of The Third Man. Well, it's a bit similar, not much, but there the Jeep is stationary, where she walks further on. At the end of that scene is kind of close to what this is. And then I could feel the freedom here, and I suppose I could feel the end of the movie coming up, which is why I felt so strongly that we shouldn't go to Greece and do what was the written end of the movie, but to end it this way. And once those keys were thrown and he opened that door, that's the end. And the kick is very, very definitely the end of the movie. The coda at the end of the film, which was originally written as a live-action sequence of Billy greeting his family, and seemed to me, again, because we were at the end of our movie, and I decided to shoot this in black and white and as stills. All these stills were shot by the unit photographer David Appleby, actually at Valletta Airport. Originally it was a live-action scene at Kennedy, but him seeing his mother and everything were all done as stills, and I just thought it didn't interfere with the film that we'd seen, because this was it was an addendum really to the movie, which ended the moment that he kicked his heels and he escaped. The film was fortunate. It won 6 Golden Globes and a couple of Academy Awards, and David Putnam, Peter Guber and Oliver Stone, they all went on to win many more Oscars. Even Danny Melnick went on to produce a film with a gay theme in 1982. called Making Love. Billy Hayes, the real Billy Hayes, is still involved, I believe, in the entertainment world. And Brad went on to make Carell with Fassbinder. And he sadly died of AIDS in 1991. And if this film should be dedicated to anybody, it should be to Brad. So, thank you, Brad.